Hi, I'm Scott from Tamarack Shack Antiques and Heckman Auction, and today I'm going to tell you a story about how we almost got kicked off of Etsy. We've been on since 2010, and over the years we started selling in 2013 and 2015. And we love Etsy. We've been moving a lot of our stuff from eBay to Etsy, and most of what we sell is antique. Almost everything that we sell is antique or vintage. So that's kind of our marketplace, and that's what we do. We do a lot of estate type of items. The purpose of this is to make sure that you know what you can and can't do. And I really like that they have policies and that they enforce them strictly. If you break policy, they will shut down your account. But over the years, some have gotten confusing. They have very areas in terms of their policies, and here's some things that we've violated because we sell estate things and it's not all the same. For example, there's a lot of people that only sell clothing, and we're in a small community, a town of 1,400 people, and our whole county's 14,000, and we live in a small town in northern Wisconsin. So when we get estate stuff, it could be anything. Anyway, we don't get thing or things in enough frequency so that we could concentrate on one particular item. What happened with us is that we violated their policy of sale of animal products, and that really sounds worse than what it is, because when you sell jewelry, you might sell something like a bear claw, for example. Our first policy violation was on a native-made sterling silver belt buckle, and it had a turquoise, and it had some coral on it, and then it also had a bear claw on it. And actually, I have a video of testing that bear claw to see if it was real, a pin test. Anyway, that's on previous videos if you want to watch that. But we had that on Etsy for about a year and a half, and all of a sudden it got pulled, and our account got frozen for a day. And we had to basically write a letter saying that we will not violate your policies. And one nice thing about Etsy is that they don't have, let's say, 20 pages of words for one particular policy. You know, prohibited animal products, they wouldn't list everything. They would just list a handful of them, and then there's some gray area. Well, in that particular case, we tried to talk to them and say, well, it's a Native American belt buckle, because a lot of times they have different policies when it comes to selling that sort of thing. We broke their policy in January 14th of 2015, and they had all of this noted in our account. But last year, we had something for sale that was a celluloid, and it was an elephant tusk, except it was only about 1.5 inches long, and it was silver tipped, and it was made in Japan or Thailand or something of that nature. It had that type of a feel to it. We had it on there once, and then all of a sudden it got pulled. I woke up and I'm looking at our Etsy account, and it's frozen. And the reason is that they said, and I'll show you the email here. We'll read it to you. Hello, Scott. Thank you for following up with me about your account. To be clear, we originally contacted you about violations for policy regarding the sale of animal products on January 14, 2015, and other times. Since your item titled Antique Carved Elephant Celluloid Tusk Silver-Tipped Pocket Watch Chain Fob appears to be made out of ivory, we elected to reissue a final warning for this policy on May 7, 2018. With that said, when the Marketplace Integrity team reviews a shop, we holistically review all the information in the account and the shop itself before we make a determination if the items qualify to be sold. Please know that we use a variety of criteria that allow us to comprehensively review shops and listings to determine if they qualify for our marketplace. Holistically determine? We sell estate stuff, so it's a mix. Per our terms of use, if Etsy concludes a business or items do not qualify, our team may reach out to you or suspend your selling privileges. In light of your most recent policy issue, you are restricted from selling bone or imitation bone items of any kind on Etsy going forward.
With policy violations can come the loss of some of your selling privileges, including limitations around what you can sell. So, we actually had 2 violations on that belt buckle. One was on 2015 and one was in 2017. It was a little bit of a mix-up simply because Etsy had changed its policies in between that period. We had taken it off for some time and then we had put it back on because in our area we weren't going to sell it out of the shop. It's just not that type of area. But we placed it back on because we saw dozens of them online, the same style of belt buckles by Native American artists that weren't being sold by the particular artist, and it got kicked again. Anyway, so that was our fault, of course, but in this particular situation we were selling something that is actually celluloid, which I'll show you what celluloid is later on in the video.
And it goes to say that please be aware that continuing to list ivory items or other prohibited animal products will result in the permanent removal of your selling privileges.
Privileges? Really? It's not a privilege, it's an agreement between 2 parties.
The with that was that it's celluloid, and celluloid was a product that was introduced in called different things, including ivory purulin, and it was made to appear like ivory. That's what the appearance is. It's kind of a really light yellow color, and it does sometimes have striations like real ivory does, but it's just a form of plastic. And we tried to explain it to them, but they thought we violated their policy. With the celluloid, and I'll show you some close up in a little bit, but basically, like here are some clip-on celluloid earrings or sunflowers, and I'll show you those up close. But it's just an item that appears to be it's not. I've got a couple to pick about that.
Here is one article from the Spruce Crafts that has a similar outlook. Will the federal ban drive down demand? And it may do the opposite.
I'll tell you my reasoning on why destroying ivory doesn't help elephants. It's actually counterproductive. Just coming back on a story, I was out east at an auction out in New Hampshire. I was talking with dealers that I've met over the years. One major antique dealer was talking auction in or Rochester, New York, where some federal agents came in before the auction, told the auctioneer to destroy all of the handles. There was ivory handles on furniture from late 1700s, early 1800s. The inlay that they would have done, and we're talking about stuff that's a couple hundred years old maybe. Why would they destroy something like that? Why would they destroy that art? I'm looking at an article here at the New York Times where $8 million of elephant ivory destroyed in Central Park. That was last year. I don't know how it would actually help. It would hinder it, because it makes people want that forbidden fruit.
Here's an article from National Geographic that discusses whether or not destroying ivory will actually help elephants. Some countries will keep their ivory in the anticipation of being able to sell it in the future, and more of it being crushed will increase the value. So again, supply and demand does take into account. So here's another one, Lucy Vigney. Ivory crushes can detract from what is really needed to save elephants. Much greater efforts on law enforcement and improving ways to protect elephants in their natural habitat. Obviously, not making it popular to have is another point. So, but I will say that the old stuff, in my opinion, it doesn't make any sense to be crushed. The Spruce Crafts again, how the ban will affect value as far as ivory and antiques. And keep in mind, it does go through here and talk about certain things that are exempt, at least so far. But there are some places that I've heard that they've been crushing marquetry off of old furniture, especially in New York, and knobs and things of that nature. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. Why destroy something that was made in the past for a specific reason? And one of the reasons that ivory was used for those kinds of things is because at that time it was a substance that didn't shrink and was very durable. I'm against crushing antique ivory. It doesn't make any sense. The new stuff, I suppose that would be fine too, but I don't think it helps with the demand.
So the people have enough money to, let's say, buy a poached elephant, might decide, hey, somebody's coming to get my stuff, so it makes it more valuable, it makes it more of a forbidden fruit. I just don't understand why they would destroy old art for the sake of that. It makes no sense to me, and in my opinion, it actually spurns on the trade. But getting back to my story about the celluloid, our $1,000 for a day, because we had something that was similar to ivory. So whenever there's a hot button issue, you might get your frozen for a day or maybe even longer. Most of the agents or the people that I've dealt with, they always deal with you in writing. They get back to you in a pretty short period of time, and they're relatively decent to work with. But if they've got a policy in mind, they're going to enforce it. There's no wavering, it seems. So, and that's, in my opinion, a good thing, but I would like to see that they would have maybe a little bit better sense when it came to things like a lot of the vintage things that are sold on their site, such as knives and celluloid, which if you do any search on Etsy, it's there, and it's all the same stuff that we had been selling. And we weren't trying to misrepresent it as an ivory tusk. The item that we in question actually was in the shape of an elephant tusk. And that's what it was meant to emulate. So, I don't know if you've seen any little elephant figurines or carved wooden ones, and they have white painted tusks, but it's almost the same thing. It's emulating an elephant's tusk. So, that is my story about almost being kicked off of Etsy, and that was, I think, our second or third violation in that particular realm, and all of them had been mistakes. It wasn't something that we were trying to slip by Etsy. But other than that, we really, really like Etsy. I suggest if you haven't tried it, try Etsy for any of your vintage items or your antique items. I like it better than eBay. I think the customer base is great on there, and it's easy to list, and there's many, many other positive things about Etsy that we like. So, this is Scott Heckman, and check us out on HeckmanAuction.com or TamarakShackAntiques.com, and we'll see you on the auction trail.